What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, and we're going to start going through in a more thorough deep dive material from The Beloved, a group that came to my attention through friend and champion of the channel Adam, and then after I reacted to a really cool track by them with an awesome saxophone part, a couple people talked that, this is a really cool group and their larger body of work would be cool to go through, and Philip stepped up and made the catalog available, a few albums, and we're going to go through one that I think was originally released in '87, but as far as I can tell we're listening to the CD release, which came out from '88, and that is Where It Is. So yeah, it's an interesting title for an album. It feels like a slang phrase to indicate where the action, where the sound, where the point of interest is, and perhaps in a sort of this is our sound and that's where it is. Nevertheless, like I said, it's from the late '80s, so ultimately only having heard one song from them up to this point, I don't really have a sense for what their typical or like wheelhouse kind of sound is versus something that might be more anomalous. So we'll just have to start going through it all. Once again, shout out to Adam and Philip for the early stages of this journey, and we're going to listen to 100 Words, which is the first track on Where It Is. Often you'll hear an expression like a picture's worth 1,000 words. Can't think of one off the top of my head that specifically uses the quantity of 100 words, but it is true that, subjective experience, sometimes there are, whether it's an emotional appreciation or some conceptual understanding where, you could babble for more than 100 words and you still might not perfectly characterize the nature of the experience, which, does sometimes speak to the poverty of our language. Nevertheless, it makes me think about maybe there's something that is immediate and visceral, but which, if you were to try to describe it verbally, would take 100 words or more. So it could be obviously something very specific, like you spoke 100 words to someone to try to convince them about something, but none of them seemed to work. So I feel like it could go so many different ways. But off the top of my head, it makes me think about the disparity between semantic precision and visceral experience, and sometimes failing to categorize the latter in the semantic hardware of the former. And now I hate myself for sounding pretentious, so let's just listen to the song. This is The Beloved, 100 Words, the first track on their 1987 album, Where It Is, though, as I said, I think we're listening to a 1988 CD release. That guitar is a bit flock and seagull-ish, which is a good thing for me. Just to be clear. Well, you had your way, now don't you think it's my turn? You had your way. All the stupid people, they never learn. You say, hey. Nothing will change. You say, hey, don't you realize it just always ends this way? I love that. It does have a reflecting on time and experience to all that stuff. Tell me, so I will shut my eyes. I don't want to know. Shot in the dark, but that's like the guitar with these chords. Like the last 10 seconds or so is getting to the point where it had to go one way or the other. It had to start fading or come to a cumulative end, which it did, and which, you know, people who've known the channel a long time will know I always prefer. But yeah, a really cool tune. And again, it was a stab in the dark, and it was like a secondary sort of speculative, it could also be this. But that sounded like exactly what he was saying, that, you know, I couldn't convince you with 100 words. You know, it's not just that I couldn't convince you of something. I tried this, I tried that, I said this, I said that, and nothing seemed to, you know, persuade you. So it feels like, again, a sort of stab in the dark was basically the direction that it was going. But yeah, I really enjoyed the sonics. Again, the guitar, very atmospheric, kind of a serious, dramatic sound, but also, again, making me think of some of the best guitar work in, like, atmospheric guitar, A Flock of Seagulls, which I think is like one of the coolest features of their early sounds. So yeah, really cool track to begin the album with.